Henry David Thoreau once said, "Disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. The obedient must be slaves." Hey guys, it's Dara here. Today we'll be discussing about a really interesting yet controversial topic, and it'll be regarding the concept of responsibilities of government, civic rights, power, and protest. To begin, what do these concepts mean, and how do they apply to different societies? Well, the government and ordinary individuals in a society hold great interconnectedness. In every society, there are certain responsibilities the governing state has to fulfill. For instance, ensuring the security of the country, protection and general welfare of citizens, management of the country's economy, protection of the environment, and social service. Likewise, citizens in a society possess rights that are considered fundamental, such as right to liberty, freedom of speech and expression, freedom of press, right to a fair trial, right to equality, the right to vote freely in public elections, and most importantly, the right to assemble. Because of the right to voting, the ordinary individuals play a big role in the legitimacy of a governing state being in power. So what is power? Power is the ability or authority to control or influence the behavior of others. Government value power. Unfortunately, not all the time do they use their power responsibly. What happens if they fail to use their power responsibly and to live up to the expectation of their citizens? Well, there is when the right to assemble come into play. From 1948 to 1994, South Africa underwent a system called apartheid, enforced through legislation by the National Party. This policy segregates the blacks from the white and brought about racial inequality. Personally, I am supporting the argument that if authority figures abuse and use their power irresponsibly, protesting is the right decision for the ordinary individuals. What caused the protests against apartheid? During this period, every South Africans were classified and separated by race in every aspect of their living. The government removed blacks from the common voters' roll, making it so that only whites are allowed to participate in voting or to be elected into their national parliament. Other than politics, the laws passed down by the government to institutionalize racial segregation also influenced the social and economic life of South Africa. New laws reserved certain jobs for white workers and restricted blacks' access to certain public facilities and to the cities. Almost 9/10 of South Africa was reserved exclusively for whites. Few blacks received an education, and black workers received only a fraction of the wages paid to whites. Especially from the 1960s to the early 80s, South Africa underwent a brutal relocation of the non-white population. More than 3.5 million blacks were taken away from the areas classified for the whites and dumped far away from their homes into the overcrowded, desolate reserves, sometimes in the winter and without any facilities. To further enforce racial segregation, the government expanded the powers of the police to allow them to detain anyone suspected of opposing government policies. They even made it legal for police to torture and kill while performing their duties. Later on, laws even allowed the police to arrest people without any proper reason or trial. This racial discrimination and injustice towards human rights had severely gathered steam, especially among the non-whites. They therefore started protesting against these discriminatory policies. So what did the anti-apartheid movement look like? And who were the people that encouraged and that were involved in the resistance? Now, resistance toward these unjust policies of apartheid was strong and immediate, especially among the educated blacks. Blacks in the ANC, which stands for African National Congress, was the main initiators to lead the fight against apartheid, but it also involved Indians, coloreds, and sympathetic whites. In the 1940s and 50s, protesters marched and burned their past books, which was designated by the government. Although the protest involves an abundant number of people, demonstrations against apartheid law were completely peaceful. South Africa's government, however, responded with brutality to the protests, especially in the black townships of Sharpeville in 1960 and Soweto in 1976, arresting thousands of people unreasonably. As a result from the government's brutality, many anti-apartheid leaders erupted and came to believe that the movement would never be successful without the use of violence. The ANC therefore started implementing cruelty in their protests and created a military unit to carry out acts of sabotage. During the early 1980s, the protests against apartheid intensified as employees' refusal to work and boycotts increased dramatically. In 1986, the government declared a nationwide state of emergency and set out to eliminate all opposition, destroying black squatter camps and detaining, abusing, and killing thousands of blacks. Despite the brutal responses of the government towards the protests and other obstacles on the process to seek racial equality, the people didn't give up and continued to protest persistently. The injustice and violence from South African government drew international attention and invited other countries to support the resistance against the wrongful law black South Africans are currently undergoing. Eventually, through resolute protests and dedications from the people, Peter William Botha, the current president of South Africa who supports the system of segregation and discrimination against non-whites, was forced to step down as both National Party leader and president in 1989. Frederick William de Klerk, who set out to terminate the apartheid system, replaced Botha. Nelson Mandela, one of the leaders of ANC, was a significant person in encouraging the resistance against apartheid, being the one to lead the movement. Afterward, he became a worldwide symbol of victory against that system when he was freed from his life sentence in prison, from which he was tried for sabotage, treason, and violent conspiracy. Once freed, Mandela continued with vigor the work of ending apartheid. He negotiated with de Klerk to bring about peaceful transformation of South Africa into a majority-ruled democracy. From every action come results and consequences. Did the protest and all the hard work paid off? Did the indignant individuals achieve what they intended? Well, eventually in 1990 to 91, the Parliament of South Africa repealed the basic apartheid laws, banned the state of emergency, freed many political prisoners, and allowed exiles to return to South Africa. Getting freed after 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela was voted the president of the ANC in 1991. He and de Klerk held negotiations over a proposed new constitution that would enfranchise the black majority and lead to all-race national elections. In April 1994, with millions of non-white South Africans and himself voting for the first time in election, Mandela was brought to power by the affection of his supporters, with de Klerk as one of two deputy presidents. During Mandela's presidency, he focused on improving the living standards of the country's black population while advocating peaceful reconciliation with the white population. By 1996, with Mandela signing into law a new democratic constitution, South Africa underwent a whole new phase of their history. At long last, South Africa finally succeeded in eliminating racial discrimination and regained liberty, equality, and justice with their human rights. As ordinary individuals, I believe that we have every right to seek for freedom and justice. Just think about South Africa. Through resolute protests and dedications from the people, they eventually succeeded in eliminating racial discrimination and regained liberty, equality, and justice with their human rights. If we don't express objection towards the injustice and oppression from the authority, no change will be made. And the individuals will continue to live under harsh and unjust conditions. Therefore, I strongly support the argument that if we are subjected to any wrongful treatment, protest is the right decision. Finally, we'd like to get you guys thinking about the following questions. Why do you think some societies have more protests than others? Do you agree that people must protest to fight for their human rights? And last but not least, what IB learner profiles do you think our topic falls under? From my perspective, open-minded and principled are two learner profiles that relate most strongly with our topic. To begin, the apartheid involved racial discrimination. So in order to counteract the system, the acceptance of different cultures and race among the similar people are essential. Furthermore, the apartheid policy greatly contradicts the principal attributes of acting with a strong sense of fairness, justice, and respect for the dignity of the individual, groups, and communities. As a result, our discussion subject definitely ties to the learner profiles of open-minded and principled. What do you guys think? Let us know